Can you hear me? Oh, yes, you can. Good evening. Thank you, everybody, for coming out to the town hall meeting tonight. My name is Jody St. Martin. I'm the community liaison for the city. Want to first of all thank Challenger School for hosting this event tonight. It's a beautiful location for us to be. Also want to recognize our city employees that are here and City Councilwoman Genesis Milam. Thank you for being here. And with that said, I would like to introduce our mayor and get the town hall on the road. Here we go.
Welcome. So you're going to do the opening. Hi there. Oh, hi there. Thank you so much for coming. The reason we do these is to bring the city to you. And so we hope you find that this is informative, and we will be doing a little bit of work in giving an overview of what we learned in our city survey that we just completed a month and a half ago, and sharing the results with you. We'll also then do a budget overview. We just completed three full days of budget hearings, and Todd, our CFO, will be sharing some of the information about what we will be doing in the year ahead, and encouraging you to participate in our public hearing on the budget later in August. We will then talk about Chinden, favorite subject, 2026, and hope that you have by now weighed in the public comment period that ITD has going through the end of the month. If you haven't, you still have time. And then we'll have a brief overview by our Community Services Director, who will talk about development that's going on north of I-84. And then lastly, and probably the most important, we have David Gomez, Officer Gomez, that will be talking about internet safety. And you might think, okay, what does internet safety have to do with me? Well, if you have kids, grandkids, neighbor kids, you need to know what's facing our youth in the cyberspace. And Officer Gomez might scare you slightly, but equip you with good information that we all need to have. So, oh, okay. I thought, am I supposed to be advancing these slides? Okay, so I'm going to give you an overview about the 2017 survey. We had a 7-page survey that our goal was to really reach out to 500 residents to make it statistically valid, to weigh in on what they think about how we're doing as a city, and rate our services and let us know as a community what they would like to see a focus on in the next several years. We actually exceeded our goal of 500 completed surveys and had well over 700 residents complete a survey. This also had a margin error of 3.6%, and so we also then looked at what were those major findings that were of interest. We love that our citizens take pride in living in Meridian. It's very exciting for us to see that there's a level of satisfaction of where they live, work, and raise their families. 93% felt it was a good place to raise their family. 92% felt it was a good place to that it was an excellent place to live, and 91% felt a feeling of safety in our community. They felt safe. That is, public safety is one of our top priorities. That spoke very highly to what our citizens are feeling about living here. The city is moving in the right direction, and it was validated. But we know that we have work to continue to do, and that's what really we were seeking information on. We also wanted to gauge our results statistically across the nation and say, how are we doing? If you get a certain percentage in a city survey and it's usually not necessarily one of the favorites, let's say code enforcement, how does that rate against other cities to really have a better gauge as to how we're doing? Out of 84 areas, well, out of 60, out of 46 areas that they measure the same questions in all the cities across the nation, 42 of those areas we exceeded the national averages, as well as the Mountain West areas. Meridian quality of services was 30% higher than the U.S. average and 25% higher than the mountain region. So we felt really good with that. I do want to take some time to talk about the positive perception of our city, and that was the major finding that we had. Here are some ratings that I know they're very small, but these are some of these that you can find on our website that we would encourage you to dive deeper. If you like data, you can get a lot of data in this. But this, the two blue are excellent and good. The top ratings rated us as a top place to raise a family, how well we ensured public safety, and the city as a place to work. When it comes to value received for your city taxes and fees, on a rating scale of 11 points, 10 meant that the residents felt they were definitely getting their money's worth, and 0 was they weren't. 72% rated the city as 7 or higher, and 95% 4 or higher. Do you want to advance? Okay. Oh, well, I didn't. This is what was in my packet. So, okay, major finding number 2. I will just go off of the slides and make up my own stuff. So, major finding number 2 is the city is moving in the right direction. These blue arrows are showing where we significantly improved in our ratings over 2014. And we were excited in 2014 when we received the feedback from our residents at that time. And now we saw that we grew in many of those areas. The one area, and you'll find this when I talk about the areas that our citizens would like us to focus on over the next 3 years, this area that is going in the red means we dropped. We dropped from 68% to 62%, and that's planning for future growth and development. And so we'll touch on that in a couple of slides from now. This is with the various statements and how people felt about our community. The top was quality shopping, entertainment are accessible. Certainly I think since 2014 and the growth in the choices of restaurants and entertainment, in particular out at the village, people feel that they have increased. So they have also said that there was a drop in quality of housing and a variety of options that exist, from 83% to 74%. We attributed that to, although we are increasing the choice of housing options, we think that that had an influence by the growth that our community is facing. Okay. A rating of public safety services, our top priority. We love that our community loves our public safety officials. and it definitely shows in the survey. Fire response time to emergency rated higher this time, as well as the location of our fire stations. You'll hear in the budget discussion that we're adding a 6th fire station this coming year. That one will be south of the freeway. But again, it shows the City Council's commitment to ensuring our response times are rating to the expectations of our citizens. And we know that every second counts. In particular, whether it's medical or fire, that these have a real impact if our response times start to slip. Location of fire safety in parks, fire safety education programs, police safety education programs, all had a big uptake in citizen satisfaction. Parks and Recreation also continue to show the pride that our residents have in our parks. The quality of our parks, hands down, people are very well tied to our parks and the quality care that our parks personnel keep. Number of special events and festivals, availability of community centers, these all rated high. So major finding number 3, we found that we do rate significantly higher than in the nation or in the region in a number of those areas like I talked about. In 46 of those areas that are constant across, 42 we rated higher in those areas. Quality of life rated 85% over 75 and 73%. Customer service, overall quality of city services, overall value of city services to taxes. We were excited to see that. The perceptions of the city, again, as a place to raise a family and a place to live, those were off the charts in comparison to the nation and the mountain region. So as you can see, we were thrilled to see us exceed in those different areas. So major finding number 4, the top priorities that probably are high on your mind and are following. So these are the areas that our citizens wanted us to start a more intense focus on. This first one is probably not a surprise to all of you. Roads, traffic, transportation came out as number 1. Anyone out there that's surprised by that? No. Second was education and schools at 50%, and growth and development, as well as jobs and economic development, rounded out the top 4. Pathways and sidewalks landed at 5, and again, there is more detail in our survey online. So this year's, one of the things that we do once we get the city survey results is I hold an annual listening tour in my home. We do this to really get more context behind the results that we get from the city survey. So we focus on several key areas, and certainly we chose the areas that our citizens identified as challenges and areas they wanted to have as top priorities. And we truthed those. We also truthed a lot of the other survey results where it was in general conversation. Our citizens brought up these without even being prompted. They really followed the lines of what our city survey suggested. Also, as well, in our challenges. So the major findings were, like I said, very similar to the city results. And when it comes to what people love about Meridian, constant across the board. They touted safety, parks, the family-friendly atmosphere, the city's clean and wholesome environment, the centralized location, certainly as a center of the Treasure Valley, and that small town feel, and our good schools. So those were all the positives. The priorities were the same as the survey. The top transportation project that came out of that was Highway 2026 and north-south corridors like Locust Grove and Linder. Looking at a Linder overpass is one of those priorities. When I asked our residents about downtown and what they would like to see that would draw them into our downtown is the heart and soul of our community, and we want it to be vibrant and healthy. So what would it take for you to go down to our downtown and be a more frequent visitor? High on that list was they wanted to see restaurants, but they didn't want to see the chains. They wanted to see locally owned mom and pop businesses down there. They would like to see music venues and family-friendly and pet-friendly activities. There's one dislike that kept coming up during the listening tours that, of course, was not a question on our survey, and that was Snowmageddon. Snowmageddon was somewhat of a nightmare for Ada County Highway District, but it really showed how all agencies working together can make a difference and start seeing things happen. Our public safety personnel, our emergency response team huddled. We worked with the Ada County Highway District to see how the city could help Ada County Highway District in clearing roads of snow, how we could help residents that couldn't help themselves. And what I found very endearing and what I love about our community was neighbors helping neighbors. It was a real time of certain challenges for our residents, but it was also one that I hope that you all took some pride in when you saw the kids walking down the street with their snow shovels trying to help each other. Neighbor helping neighbor. And many of our places of worship went into neighborhoods that were around where their places of worship were, and they helped the neighbors out quite a bit. So the major theme of the comment we got in the listening tour was less snow next year. So major theme is really your voice matters. The city survey was used in highlighting several of our needs as we talked to City Council during the budget workshop. These results and the voice that our citizens shared really did play into many of those budget priorities, and you'll see that in some of the areas that our finance director, our CFO will share with you. So I'm going to turn it over to Todd Lavoie, and he'll do a brief overview of our budget process and what you have to look forward to in the year ahead.
Well, thank you, Mayor. First off, also want to give a thanks to Challenger for letting us be here today, and extend a thank you to the citizens for taking time out of your busy days to be with us. Again, as the mayor stated, I'm going to give a quick overview of what the city's been working on in regards to our current budget cycle. The city is working on our fiscal year 2018 budget, which is going to start October 1 and go to October 1 of the following year. So we have been working on that for a few months now. I'm going to kind of give you an overview of what our revenue sources are, where we're going to be putting those revenue sources towards, and then at any time I can answer any questions. And then we'll also go over some of the requests that the mayor spoke to you about of achieving and meeting those customer or community needs that we learned from our city survey. So the budget process. The budget process is a 9-month process. We start off in the month of February, and we will finish in the month of September. Starting off in the month of March, we start working with the departments, and we develop what we call our base budget. We work with our council members. We have, looks like 3 council members here, Councilmember Milam, Councilmember Palmer, and Councilmember Kavanagh. So we work with the council members, we work with the departments, and we start developing our what we call our base budget. And then in the month of April and May, we put all these numbers together and we develop what's called the mayor's draft proposal. At that moment is when the mayor and the executive branch, her department directors, we put together our final budget that we want to present to council for consideration. And then during the month of June, we kind of start balancing the budget. So we've spent approximately 24 hours as a group. The mayor mentioned that we spent 3 days together balancing the budget, putting the budget together. We just finished that last week, and the council last night actually accepted the budget as a balanced proposal for the citizens to consider in the month of August. Right now, we're in the public hearing section. That's the public hearing process. Last night, council announced to you, the citizens, our budget proposal for fiscal 2018. It's now going to be out to you for consideration for 4 weeks. And then on August 22nd, during our normal council meeting, we'll have a public hearing that allows you, the council, or allows you, the citizens, to present to the council any concerns or thoughts about the budget proposal that we presented to you last night. Then as soon as August 22nd occurs, we have a balanced, approved, accepted budget. And then at that time, the finance department will appropriate the funds to the departments to expend the resources that we approved as a city. And then during the fiscal year starting October 1, 2017, we have 12 months to execute and expend the resources accordingly. So again, right now, we are in the public hearing. We're good. Right now we're in the public hearing section. Again, August 22nd, that's the date we want to remind you citizens to stop on by the council meeting and let us know if you have any concerns about the budget proposal. The budget is online. It's public. It's actually published in the newspaper as well for 3 weeks. Sorry about that. Go ahead. So with that, revenue sources. The question is, where do we get our revenue sources? The city runs 2 major funds. The first fund is called the general fund. We have to separate some expenditures from other expenditures. In this case, we're going to use the term called the general fund. The general fund is the fund that we use to provide the resources to our fire department, our police department, the parks department. You'll hear from the community development department. They're the ones that also are part of our general fund. Then you have the administration, general government offices, the mayor's department, the finance department, information technology department. So that's what the general fund resources are used to fund. In this case, the majority of our revenue for this particular fund that helps pay for these services are the property taxes. We get about 62% of our revenue sources from the citizens and from the property owners on an annual basis. Our second largest revenue sources from our intergovernmental. So we get money from the state for revenue, sales tax we all pay. There's some other revenue sources that we have access to. So that represents the general fund. We'll get about $50.9 million projected for fiscal year 18. The next fund that we kind of isolate is called the enterprise fund. This is the fund that we utilize to manage the expenditures associated to water delivery, the water that shows up in your house, and also the sewer. Will collect the sewer water from your properties as well. The engineering that goes involved with managing the infrastructure, and then the utility billing. The City of Meridian provides the billing services to send out the monthly water bills. So we have a staff on our team that manages that for us as well. We have 33,000 current customers that we manage on a daily basis. And those funds or those expenditures are funded by the water bills, the sewer bills that you pay on a monthly basis. In this case, about, I think it's 63% of our revenue comes from our waters and sewer bills that we send to you on a monthly basis. So that represents the enterprise fund, and this year we're anticipating about $38.4 million for fiscal year 2018 to fund those services needed to meet your requests. So the requests. For fiscal year 2018, Council approved last night, or accepted last night, a $154 million budget for fiscal year 2018. Again, the mayor mentioned the city survey. This budget was developed to maintain and meet those expectations that we heard from you as a community, to meet those levels of services. Again, the city survey gave us positive results that what we're doing seems to be good, so that's great. So this budget here was developed to keep those services going. So if you have a chance, thank the council members that are here tonight for accepting the budget that we promoted to them last night. Again, without them, this budget would not be where it's at today. So again, our budget for fiscal 18 is to continue the services that we're delivering to you today. And this year represents kind of the major request that represents the $154 million budget that we have presented. The mayor mentioned that we have fire station number 6 showing up. That's going to be in the south of town, so that's going to be a major improvement to our services that we're going to provide to you. We're going to have about $1.4 million in some vehicle replacements, a new fire engine, some police vehicles. Again, we're going to have some technology improvements, about $500,000. Some new administration personnel to help sustain and maintain the services that the city needs. We'll have some new police officers that you'll see out there to maintain the safety of the city. And then the parks development. Again, the parks are a beautiful part of the city, and we're going to add a few personnel to maintain those parks for you on a daily basis. So that represents the general fund. So again, property taxes are the major funding source for that top section. The bottom section is the water delivery, the sewer collection. Again, we're going to have about $3 million in replacement. So we're going to find some old water mains and old water pipes and replace those, make sure they're up and running, working well for you. We're going to have some technology upgrades. They need some new staff members for the growing city. As we continue to grow the city, we need to maintain the infrastructure that we have out there for you. And then again, the bottom two numbers are the budget request to make sure we deliver the water safely and clean for you. And then the second one is to address the sewer collection capacity. As we're growing, we need to continue to grow our treatment facility so we can manage the treatment for you on a daily basis. I believe that's the last slide I have for you from a summary. It is. Again, I stand for any questions. We'll be here, but that's the budget summary for fiscal 18 in review. You have a question? Valid question. We have a union contract that we as a city agree with the union. Do they make substantially more money? I would say the answer is no. They get paid in a market value that is compensable to other like firefighters within the region. Mm-hmm.
Next. Next on the agenda is Caleb Hood with Highway 2026.
As Jody just mentioned, my name is Caleb Hood. I am the Planning Division Manager for the City of Meridian in the Community Development Department. Made a mistake. I had an eye doctor's appointment late this afternoon. They said, oh, in about 2 hours, your eyes will be okay from this dilation. And my notes, I made in about 10 font points, so I can't really read it. So hopefully my message gets across to you all this evening, but I can't really see my notes very well. So similar to the mayor, I may just make some things up as we go along here. So what I do? No, I'm sure everything was factual. So what I do is a lot of actually what the mayor touched on going forward and some of the concerns that the community members have. Growth, development, traffic, transportation, roads, transit. That's a lot of what we do in my department. And I play a role in that. We have a great team but that's a lot of what I do day to day. I work with ACHD. For those of you that don't know, we don't control our own destiny here in Meridian or in Ada County. There's an Ada County Highway District that has authority over the roadways, both construction and maintenance of them. But I do work with them. I'm a liaison of sorts back to the Highway District for the city and work with them on new capital projects as well as ITD. And that's really why I'm here, is to speak about this project on to widen Chinden. So a couple of years ago, the mayor established a task force that was charged with getting the word out and some energy around widening US 2026. Reducing congestion, improving safety, and creating economic opportunity. Those are kind of the three key points to why the state should widen this state highway, a critical transportation corridor. So last year there was some good news. The ITD board did include the first mile of our request in their program. So that's to widen Chinden Boulevard from Eagle Road to Locust Grove. It's a little bit less than a mile. I'm sure everyone's driven that stretch before. It necks down there just after you cross Eagle Road if you're westbound. So they'll widen from that point through the Locust Grove intersection, so about a mile. So that's in their plan to widen right now in the year 2021. Just earlier this year, they released for public comment, and that's again some of why I'm here, some additional phases of widening Chinden. So again, good news. The bad news is that's not until 2022 and 2024. So it's a ways out there. That's where you come in. We're asking folks to go ahead and if you would, please go to ITD's website, send them an email, comment on their website, ask them to widen more of Chinden sooner. I do have some handouts and an exhibit. We can go back to that other slide just real quick. I know it's hard to see, and it's even harder for me to see, believe me. But I do have some handouts here at 8.5 by 11, so if you didn't pick one up on the way out, I have this exhibit essentially at the table. So ITD is planning, so Eagle Road would be on the far right-hand side of this exhibit. They're planning on widening it in two phases, really. There's multiple phases. Widening the corridor all the way through Canyon County to 4 lanes, and then coming back sometime in the future and widening it to 6 lanes. So the first widening to 4 lanes will be done on the south side of the roadway. That's to keep traffic flowing, so they can add the additional lanes and keep traffic moving. It'll still be a construction zone, but it won't be the impact as if they would add a lane on each side of the existing travel lanes. So widening on the south side in the first phase, and then the north side, again, when triggers are met and warrants are there and money is there to widen it to 6 lanes. So really it's interim improvements to 4 lanes and then ultimately to 6. And again, that's broken down in, so the county line's here. That's broken down into multiple phases. There's 4 different projects there, but we're asking you to support some or all of those. We're really pushing to at least through the Linder intersection, but even points further west would certainly be welcomed. So that comment period, we're in the latter stages of that. It actually closes on the 30th of this month, so that's Sunday. So just a few days left, so I would encourage you tonight after this meeting, if you could just take 5 minutes, go there. It doesn't have to be a long, drawn-out email. Just if you could recognize that or ask that ITD advance these projects in their program, it certainly would be appreciated. And share the message with neighbors. We're trying to get the word out as the city through some of our mechanisms, but would ask you word of mouth too to just share it with your neighbors if they're so inclined, if this is a priority for them as well. So there's the contact information there. I know this is a longer, it's not just an easy URL that you type in, there's a lot of letters there. You can simply Google search this, ITD ITIP, and it'll send you right to the right page within a couple of clicks. So if you don't want to write that whole web address down, just ITD ITIP, ITIP, it's Idaho Transportation Improvement Program, if you want to spell it out, but there's ways to make comments. Again, I mentioned I have a couple of handouts there at the table, one showing the phasing plan, the other showing what the ultimate corridor looks like. So how wide are the travel lanes, where are the sidewalks, where's the drainage going, those types of things. We also have at the table, just a quick for the table as we transition into Bruce's presentation, We also, Bill Parsons is also here from our office. He has networked into the city's database, and if you got any questions about the projects that Bruce is just about to talk about, sorry if I'm stealing your thunder, Bruce, but Bill's here and he can pull up information. We have some comment sheets on a large project that's currently in process, so if anybody can't make it to City Hall to comment, we can take some comment forms on a large project that's proposed just down the road at Chinden and Linder. So with that, I think I will pass the mic to Bruce Chatterton, the Community Development Department Director.
I think we're growing. In fact, Meridian has been one of the top 10 fastest growing communities, cities in the country for the last several years. So North Meridian has certainly gotten and continues to get its share of that growth and development. That's why we're talking about widening a major arterial like Chinden, or finding out what is the best design for that roadway. I think it's really important whenever we talk about growth and development is that it has a real impact on the community. I don't think anybody on our staff feels that if you have concerns about development that you're just being cranky or you're being a not in my backyard sort of person. It's really important to acknowledge that Meridian is in some ways, with the growth numbers that we've had and continue to have, we are a city in progress, a city in the making. And that's going to go on for some time, but there are real impacts, real concerns around development. And it's just really important to acknowledge that every application that comes into the city, we do our best to, as we say, mitigate those impacts, try to smooth those edges. You will never, though, in this industry get that perfect. It's important to acknowledge that as well. We do our best. But sometimes things come in, they perhaps seem a little bit sort of out of order, or we have development get a little bit ahead, maybe a lot ahead of the roadway capacities. Perhaps schools are overcrowded. These are real concerns, and we take them very seriously. So, next slide, please. So if you have concerns, and if you approach the mayor or any of the council members, we have 3 council members here tonight, at here or at Albertsons or at Kleiner Park, wherever, and you want to talk to them about an application that is being processed right now for development, and they say, sorry, I can't talk to you. They don't mean to be rude. In Idaho and other places, many development applications are what we call quasi-judicial. What this means is that the mayor and city council, and if it's before Planning and Zoning Commission, the Planning and Zoning Commission members have to act almost like judges. So almost in a courtroom-like setting, they need to be able to demonstrate that their decisions are objective and are based upon the evidence being presented. The evidence is being presented first by the applicant, by staff, and from anyone who is interested in commenting. And it's important for our decision makers, the P&Z commissioners and our elected officials, to be able to make those decisions based upon the evidence at that hearing. So at that, I guess the point I'm trying to make is that if you have any concerns about, and I'll just use the name, say Linder Village, a project which is certainly, there's been a number of comments. We've received a number of comments about. We're very interested in those comments, but our elected officials really need to shield themselves until the public hearing occurs from those comments. So that's why we have, one of the reasons why we have Bill Parsons here, who heads up our current planning group for the city. Bill's a handsome guy in the red shirt. And if you have comments you want to give about that project or any other project which is pending, which is being considered right now, come and talk to me, Bill, to Caleb. Staff can take your comments, and we will make them part of the record. So we really can't talk about pending projects here. So just a word about that. We're not being rude. Okay, what's coming up? A lot of things. We either have, not all these projects are actually open right now. Some of them have applied for approval. Some actually are ribbon cuttings. Two that are definitely not within South Meridian that are really, I think, of interest to everyone within the city of Meridian are the Idaho College of Osteopathic Medicine. That's Idaho's first college of medicine. So it's a really cool project. The project value, just in terms of construction, is almost $24 million. It's going to be a real game changer for Meridian and for the state of Idaho. We're very excited about that. Also, at the 10-mile interchange, we have the 10-mile crossing. That's a project which has 3, so far, corporate headquarters. And before it's built out, before that entire interchange is built out, we're looking at several thousand jobs we anticipate in that area. So those are 2 projects that are of citywide importance. We've got a number of others. Just big and small. We've got the on June 22nd, the Flame Broiler restaurant on West Chinden opened up. If you're a fan of gyros, Greek food, we've got 2 gyro shacks, one on Fairview and one up here in North Meridian at Paramount on Linder Road. Breda Bed, that's actually a manufacturing facility for bedding equipment, so bringing more manufacturing jobs from Meridian. Walmart on 10 Mile has just added an online pickup expansion, so you can pick up your groceries there, ordering them online or by phone. There's a Culver's restaurant, Ustick and Eagle. We've also got the North Point retail building. That's 12,000 square feet. It's a multi-tenant building. That's Linder and McMillan. The Rock Harbor Church, 74,000 square foot church, north side of Chinden at Tree Farm. Right over here, we've got the Dollar Tree. You might laugh about Dollar Tree, but they're one of the most successful retailers in the country right now. A new Stinker Station. Raisin Angels, which is a large daycare facility at Meridian and McMillan, and 2 new city parks, Rita Husky Neighborhood Park and Keith Bird Park as well, both in North Meridian. So, it's a project a lot of people have had on their mind. I certainly don't have an announcement. The answer to the question of is a certain big box retailer coming to Meridian? The answer is we just don't know. There is a site plan for a project that does show a Winco. This is Linder Village, and Bill has the site plan here tonight if you want to take a look at it. Linder Village does show a Winco store. It also shows another big box location as well as others as well. We simply don't know if that is going to be a Costco or if there will be a Costco in Meridian. So I guess we'll just have to wait and see on that score. Any questions about a project that maybe is not doesn't have an open application from anybody right now? And if there are no questions from the group, please go over and see Bill or Caleb and give them your comments. Any questions? Okay. Who's up next?
Thank you, Bruce. Just a couple of comments on the presentations you just heard. Is in our city budget, I want you to know we're debt-free. We have been a debt-free city, that we save for big capital items before we build them. And so we want you to know we take the stewardship of your tax dollars very serious. And being debt-free through certainly the time I've been involved with the city has been something that we take serious as well. Another example of that your voice matters is on the 2026 corridor. Caleb talked about the projects that were added to the ITIP, and that was because the work group started to build coalitions of citizens and businesses that started speaking together in a loud voice. And when we had our comment period 2 years ago, or last year, they heard you. And so another project was added in 2022, and as a third project was added, although it's unfunded. It is on the plan, and it's within a 7-year period. So again, by sharing your voice on that needed improvement does make a difference. Just this last winter, they took public comment on I-84 expansion into Canyon County. They had over 800 people comment and support that project, and they're building it this summer and starting it. So your voice does matter, and I just wanted to emphasize that. Here are some upcoming events and projects. I don't know if you realize that we now have a Meridian Farmers Market. It's every Saturday in City Hall Plaza. This is a youth farmers market, so it is different from the farmers markets in the area. You can find great produce. The only thing that is different is on the other side of that counter that's selling you the produce is it's a youth vendor. 75% of our vendors that participate in the farmers market here in Meridian are school-aged. And they're growing their own produce. They're making their own home-baked goods. We have a 10-year-old beekeeper that makes honey. So I would encourage you to check out on Saturday mornings from 9 to noon our youth farmers market. We have concerts on Broadway coming up. The next one is this weekend, and it starts at 6:30 with a youth musician band, and then at 7 o'clock High Street Band. If you haven't heard them, they're high energy, and they rock out our plaza corridor. Bring your lawn chairs, a picnic, and enjoy the evening. It might be warm, so bring a fan. And so we hope that you will come out and support our community events, and we just wanted to make sure that you were aware of some of those. We do have flyers on the table, the Youth Farmers Market, and I believe the concerts on Broadway. So I would like to introduce our final speaker, and I talked about it well, no. Do you have any questions? Does anyone have any questions about anything that has been shared so far? Yes, ma'am. Yes, we have an ordinance that supports the arts, and the City Council passed that several years ago that dedicated 50 cents per person in our population up to $50,000. And that's discussed every year during the budget process, which was also a consideration in our ordinance that it needed to be brought up as an enhancement every single year. We have a Meridian Arts Commission of citizen volunteers that focus and bring together the community to support the arts, not just the city. So they leverage a number of the dollars. We have corporate sponsors that sponsor things like concerts on Broadway. So we do think that the arts are part of placemaking, of making Meridian home, not just a place you come and lay your head. So thank you. Any other questions? Okay, with that said, I'm going to introduce David Gomez. Officer Gomez is a school resource officer, and he is a man in demand. Really, the information he has to share probably is more geared towards our youth, but I think it applies to all of us. in what's going on the internet waves and what you need to know and what you need to be aware of. So please join me in welcoming Officer Gomez.
I'm Officer Gomez. Thanks for having me here today. I am the school resource officer at Mountain View High School. I've been there 3 years now. Prior to that, I was at Lewis and Clark Middle School. Before being a police officer, I was actually an engineer at Micron for 14 years, so I'm very good at electronics. In these days of social media can be used for awesome things. I think I can build a house with Google in my garage. I can fix things that I could never fix. I can look things up that I could never look up. I have an amazing wealth of knowledge. Through this job as a resource officer, I learned that there's a lot of other things going on with social media that parents have no idea about. In fact, some kids have no idea about. A lot of times when I get up in front of youth, they think, man, what's this old guy going to teach me about the internet? It only takes me a few minutes to give them some facts and some real stories about some scary things that happen on the internet. I'll tell you how I became educated on social media. Being an engineer, I'm already good at electronics. When I became a resource officer at Lewis and Clark Middle School, that's 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. There's about 1,200 of them there. When I got there, I realized the biggest problem every day, bar none, was social media. And it's still that way in every middle school and every high school. The biggest problem we have, social media, without a doubt. And so my social media skills were not there. I had strong computer skills. My social media consisted of an out-of-date MySpace account that I never used. Okay, so now I got to the middle school, and every problem we have is social media. And these 6th graders are learning it every minute, every hour of the day. They're on social media learning new tricks. Now, as a police officer, I needed to catch up with the 6th graders. Is there any classes an adult can take to catch up with them? There is not. So how did I educate myself? What I did is I made a fake Facebook account. It took me about 10 minutes. I made a fake Facebook account. I friended about 20 of the most popular kids at Lewis and Clark Middle School. They all accepted me. Once they all accepted me, I was friends with them. Everybody else thought I might be cool. They started friending me back. Within a couple months, I had almost 400 kids at Lewis and Clark Middle School that were my fake friends. All right, and I used this fake account. I could see all kinds of things about people. About, who they were dating, who was bringing alcohol to school, who was bullying. I could see everything. But what I could also see is how dangerous it was. Here I have a fake account, which I have 400 kids who have accepted me or friended me. They're starting to send me private chat messages with their phone numbers, with where they're going for the weekend, with where they live, what teams they're on, who they're dating, when they're going to sneak out at night, all kinds of things that they shouldn't be sending to strangers. And so in an effort to educate them, I thought, well, how can I educate them? Now that I know how to use this and I know how dangerous it is, how can I educate them? So I started going into 6th, 7th, 8th grade classes, and I'd say, hey, raise your hand if you have social media. And before they'd get all their hands raised, no, put them down. I already know who has social media because I'm your fake friend on your account. And their jaws would drop. Oh, goodness, Officer Gomez, I feel like you're stalking me. It makes me feel all dirty inside. Right? I'm deleting you. That's what they would all say. I'm like, okay, please do delete me, right? Because that next 16-year-old Justin Bieber kid you friend, that could be Officer Gomez. That next hottie girl, by the pool, that could be Officer Gomez. How do you like me now? Right, but it could be much worse. If you look up the registered sex offender maps, within most schools, 2 miles, there's 12 registered sex offenders. You go to 5 miles, there's 30 registered sex offenders. How hard would it be for them to make the same fake accounts I did and friend the kids? Not very hard at all. And so what I found is most of the kids, even 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, had 500 or more friends already. Some of the kids had upwards of 5,000 friends in middle school. 5,000, that's a huge amount. In fact, Facebook caps you at 5,000, so a couple of them had to have 2 accounts so that they could get all their friends on there. All right, so my challenge to the kids was, as they were telling me, oh, I'm going to delete you, I'm going to delete you. Okay, please do. Take out your phones right now and delete me. And they'd get their phones out and they'd look and, wait a second, Officer Gomez, which one of my 500 friends are you? I'm not saying. Delete everybody you don't know and you'll have deleted me. It's that simple. And some of them would attempt. Some of them would just delete their account altogether and start over because they were creeped out by it, and that was okay. Right? You're creeped out by the police officer, but not by the actual, predators that are following you. And as parents would call me, hey, do you know how many friends your kid has? And they didn't. They had no idea. But as some parents called me, I would say, hey, your kid has 700 friends on Facebook. They're a sixth grader. Well, that's okay because I monitor it, is what the parents would say. No, you don't. Even if your child never posted one thing to social media, they're part of 700 people's drama. Does your sixth grader need to know that little Susie's pregnant, that Johnny got busted for drugs, that, all this hate going around about politics? They don't need to be a part of all that. That just desensitizes them. Another thing I've learned, social media, every single social media application requires you to be at least 13 years old. Yet these days, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12-year-olds already have their own cell phones. All right, and this is becoming a bigger and bigger problem. And we'll talk about that here in a minute, what other problems there are. With that fake account that I made at Lewis and Clark, I made a second account of a 13-year-old girl. With that girl, what I did is I did something new. I accepted friends of friends. If you were a friend with my kids at Lewis and Clark, which the second account didn't get nearly as many friends because they already knew not to accept people they didn't know. But I started getting 20, 30, 40, 50-year-old men started friending my account. Now, my fake account, I'm not anybody's relative. I'm not anybody's soccer team. I'm not anybody's church group. Nothing. I don't know why these older men were friending me. Well, actually, I learned very quickly why they were friending me. As I started chatting with some of them, many requests came in every day for my 13-year-old girl to send nude photos of herself. And when I would refuse, hey, I'm not sending you nude photos, they'd keep on chatting. Then they'd want to meet up. And this was kind of new to our department, so hey, let's meet up with them. And they agreed to meet us, and we picked different places, and we tried to do it as safely as we could. And with all the Catch a Predator shows, we thought there's no way they're going to meet us. And the very first one, there they are, right on time. Oh, goodness. All right, so then one summer, I made a whole bunch of fake accounts, just parked them there. Let's see what happens. Well, what happened is we started getting lots of predators meeting us. In fact, almost every predator that said they were going to meet us, met us. And they almost all made the news. They all got arrested. Child enticement. All right, but that's just the ones that we were catching with our fake accounts. There's a whole lot of real enticement going on, real reports we take with real victims. And the victims are getting younger and younger and younger as we give kids social media devices. Okay, especially your 8, 9, 10, 11-year-olds have no business having a smartphone with applications, with social media applications. Number one, as a parent, if you allow them to have a social media application, that means you're okaying for them to say they're older than they are, because it requires you to be 13. Number two, it's almost like a drug these days. Try and take a cell phone away from a 10-year-old. Watch what happens. When I call a parent and say, hey, I took your kid's cell phone away, they're like, do I need to meet you at the hospital? Or I get parents, hey, my kid did something I don't like. Can you take their cell phone away? Well, why didn't you take it away? No, they won't give it to me. What? Come on now. Right? One of the other things we're having, bullying problems. Bullying problems is kind of controversial with me since I hardly believe it. In all my dealings, what I found is that a lot of adults and a lot of kids don't really know what bullying is. So let me give you the definition of bullying. One way, repeated harassment, basically in any means, by third person, by digital device, in any way, shape, or form. And what people miss is the one way repeated. Okay, if somebody's walking down the hallway and they call your kid a name, and that's the first time they've heard from them, and that's the last time they heard, that is not bullying. That's just somebody being rude. Are people going to be rude in real life? Absolutely. All right, but what usually happens is there's a Twitter fight. And you got two sides going back and forth, back and forth. The first parent to call the school thinks they're the victim. Nope, they're not the victim. It's not bullying. It's called social conflict. And when your kid comes home and says, hey, I'm being bullied, you look at it, you can clearly see that it's social conflict. It's a great opportunity for you as a parent to teach them how to deal with social conflict. Because we as police have to deal with a lot of adults who never learned how to deal with social conflict. Usually that comes in the way of road rage or some craziness that we have to go and deal with. But when kids come to me to my office and they say, Officer Gomez, I am getting bullied. All right. So first of all, I tell them the definition of bullying. Are you really getting bullied? Well, no, because I said this, and they said this, and I said this, and they said this. But I want it to stop. I said, okay. So we need to learn some conflict resolution. Do you want me to fix this for you, or do you want me to show you how to fix it? And almost every one of them says, show me how to fix it. Okay. So I show them. And 99% of the time it works just fine. Here's the things you can do. You can block and you can delete them. You can turn off your phone. You can throw your phone in the drawer. You can have some confidence in yourself. You can have love and support from all your friends and family. There's all kinds of ways you can combat this. Right? Raise your hands up saying, I'm a victim and I want you to arrest this person. It's not going to work usually. In all my years of being an SRO and seeing more bullying than most anybody else, or getting more bullying reports, I think I've only written like 4 bullying citations ever that have been true bullying. And social media bullying is the easiest of all. Just turn off the phone, throw it in the drawer. It's done. It is done. I'll tell you my awesome parent story. After a Twitter fight, I was calling, 10 or 15 different girls usually, and they were all involved, but every parent wanted me to arrest all of them, except for theirs. But one of the parents I called said, well, I didn't know my daughter was involved. She portrayed it as she was the victim. I said, no, she was involved. Here's what she said. Oh, I'm sorry, Officer Gomez. Let me call you back. After about a half hour, Mom called me back, and she said, Officer Gomez, I'm very sorry that I didn't know the full story. Just so you know, our daughter won't have a phone for another year. Because in our house, the rule is that we will never say anything negative on social media about anybody for any reason. That's it. And that girl didn't have a phone for a year. Now, she's going to be a senior this year at Mountain View. And she's turned out to be one of the happiest girls of the whole bunch. Because the whole bunch just continues, right? Because they have parent approval. And usually the parent approval is, well, somebody said something first. I can't just let her sit there and take it. Yes, you can. Or just throw the phone in the drawer. It's a beautiful thing. These days, probably what's one of the bigger problems that's going on with social media is nude photographs. All right, nude photographs are reaching an epidemic. I would say by 10th grade, the girls at Mountain View High School, at least 50% of them had sent out a nude photo. Half of those are to somebody they don't know. Now the middle school girls are starting to catch them up. Okay, so now we're seeing nude photos from 11 and 12-year-olds. Why? Because they're seeing what the high school girls are doing. All right, and let me tell you, let me set up a story how this goes, how easy it is, and how it's not that the kids are bad or they lack anything at home. It's just the way the internet works and the way social media goes. So I had a 7th grade girl come into my office at Lewis and Clark. She was bawling her eyes out. She said, Officer Gomez, none of the boys will talk to me. They won't ask me to the dances. They won't, call me, nothing. All right, and I knew this girl pretty well. She always dressed appropriately. I don't think she'd cursed in her life. Strong LDS family, very active in the community. Well, all her fellow classmates know this, so they don't invite her. That's no fun. Right? She's a goody two-shoes. We're not going to invite her because there's no fun there. And as she's crying in my office, I'm trying to tell her this is a good thing. Let's focus on your studies. Well, now let's enter a high school boy from a school she doesn't know. Right? So he's a 15, 16-year-old high school boy. He starts chatting her up. Oh, you're a beautiful girl. I'd like to take you to the movies. We'll have popcorn. We'll take you to a football game. And it's her first relationship. So she is very head over heels in love with this guy. Right? She's been raised on fairy tales. So now when this boy says, hey, send me a nude picture, she says, it's against my family, it's against my religion, it'll break my dad's heart, it's against everything I believe in. So this boy says the one thing I've seen said hundreds of times, oh, well, I'm thinking you're just not mature enough for me right now. Look me up in a couple of years when you're more mature. So then she does end up sending nude photographs of herself, even though she knew it was wrong. She knew it was against everything she had. But this happens every day. And now with the amount of kids sending their pictures, now we have people taking advantage of them that are just extorting girls. So I'm taking reports where somebody anonymous makes a fake account. They'll send a girl a message, hey, I have your nude photo, send me another one to me personally, or I'm going to plaster your nude photo to your family, to your friends, to everywhere. Now, if the girl has ever sent out a nude photo, does she know whether this anonymous person has it or not? She doesn't. The only way she knows is if she's never sent it out. And actually, I'd have that happen very rarely where the girl comes in and says, I've never sent one out. And in that case, well, you have nothing to worry about. But that's usually not the case. It's usually, who have you sent me pictures to? And sometimes they send pictures to somebody they don't know in a faraway land. And we can't do much. We just hope that they don't plaster it all over their social media, and sometimes they do. Sometimes they do. So this class that I teach is actually 90 minutes long. We're squeezing it into like a 25-minute class for you guys. If you guys follow my Facebook or follow the Meridian Police Facebook page, you can see where I teach the class, usually at churches or schools. If you have a church or group that wants to have me, just send me an email. A lot of times we go there. We don't charge because we get the information out. It helps us in the long run. In my real class, I go into secret applications. I go into a lot more detail on the dangers of what's happening with kids and social media. Now, it always comes across as being very scary, and most people walk away, oh, that's very disturbing. Right? They want to call halfway through, honey, take all the phones, throw them in the microwave, shut the power off to the house, don't move till I get there. All right? But what I see is there's a lot of kids that don't do that. And what it comes down to is parenting. And you don't have to be a parenting genius. You just have to be a parent that cares, spends some time, and talks with your kids honestly and in reality. All right, a lot of people give their kids these phones, and the rest of their life, their conversations are through text. No, let's sit down and have some real honest conversations. And these conversations need to start happening in 5th and 6th grade. Right, because parents are a little naive on when kids start having sexual thoughts. Is another thing I teach parents. Right, I have a 7-year-old granddaughter. She's as cute as a button. She's not going to think about sex till she's 25. I'm sure of it. All right? Is that the truth? No. The reality is that 6th and 7th graders are thinking about sex a lot, and some of them are actually engaging in sex. And that's where parents need to have the conversation. Teachers aren't allowed to have that conversation. Parents have to have it. Okay, in the school, cell phones is becoming a huge deal. You can walk down any classroom and see kids texting in class. And they're not doing homework research, they're just texting their friends. Why do they do this? Well, what happens is parents have given up, or teachers have given up the fight, because as teachers, even though we have no cell phone policy, as teachers go to take a cell phone, the kid says, no, I'm not giving you my cell phone. All right, and the teacher knows that as soon as that kid says, no, I'm not giving you my cell phone, the whole rest of the class is lost. There'll be no learning that day. So then the teacher will say, okay, you need to go to the office. And sometimes they'll go to the office, sometimes they'll go to Dutch Bros, or sometimes they say, no, I'm not going at all, because they're there for the social part of it, and they want to see how funny the rest of the class is since they refuse to obey the teacher. So sometimes they get principals involved, sometimes it gets SROs involved, and it's becoming a huge battle. And I can't tell you how many parents have called me, Officer Gomez, Johnny's math teacher took their cell phone, I want to file a theft report. Right? And what they're going to hear from me is, hey, is there a real parent in the house that I can talk to? Okay, but that's ridiculous. I've had that call 20 times at least. It's not theft. It's disrespect. No matter what the reason, it's disrespect. And usually by the time the parent gets there, the kid has come up with some excuse why they had to have their phone. Oh my gosh, you didn't let them use the phone. What if there was a fire? Well, I'm pretty sure that model does not put out fires. Okay? Texting and driving. That's another huge one. Around the city, we as police officers, well, in our patrol cars, it's kind of magically, there's no texting and driving around us. But when I'm in my personal car, I see all kinds of texting and driving. If I go sit at the entrance to my school and I'm kind of hidden, I see all kinds of texting and driving. If I go to the middle school where the kids can't drive yet, I see all kinds of texting and driving from the parents. Okay, if you as a parent text and drive, guess what your kids are going to do? I promise. I promise, I promise. Now, These days they have some cool applications that as soon as you're going a certain speed, it shuts off the phone. You're not going to text and drive. And I have some kids whose parents have installed software that half hour before school, during lunch, and half hour after school, their phone shuts off so that they can't text at all during their drive to school, during their lunch hour when they're driving, and after school. There's some wonderful pieces of technology that you as parents can use. You just have to know about them, do the research, and talk to your kids, talk to me, do a Google search. Right? Whatever it is, do a Google search. You know, if your my kid's getting bullied, what should I do? Google has some awesome answers. Not all of them are right, but a lot of times they'll get you going in the right direction. Okay, if you want a class, just email us. We do lots of them. Usually 2 a month. Officer Caddick does one as well. Officer Ellis is starting to pick up with the pornography class and what effects it has on society. And it's a pretty good class, and a lot of times we're doing them together. So I'll do internet class first. They'll do the pornography class second. And we always recommend 10-year-olds and up come with their families. Because when you come with your family, as you're leaving, you can say, hey, it's a good conversation starter. Officer Gomez says this. What do you think about that? Hey, well, Officer Gomez said this. What do you think about that? It's a good conversation starter because a lot of parents don't know how to start those awkward conversations. It's a lot easier than you think, but that gives you a gateway to going to it, right? And the way I tell parents about the, Officer Ellis's pornography class is, hey, 5 years ago, if we were to tell you, you read a story actually that said, hey, this single mom gave her 15-year-old a box of Playboy magazines so he could learn about sex when he's 15. Most people, oh my gosh, you need to hang her by her toes. She should be a horrible parent. These days, people give their 9, 10, 11-year-olds a cell phone with access to millions of pornography sites. Some of them are violent pornography sites. All these things they have access to. I'm not even sure they consider the Playboy magazines pornography anymore. But all these things are available with social media, and parents don't think about this when they give their cell phones. They give cell phones because, at 7, 8, 9, the kids are saying, hey, everybody else on the block has a cell phone. How come I don't? Are we poor? What's going on? They give a cell phone because it's a good babysitter, right? You see 3, 4-year-olds with their iPads. Here, play on the iPad, leave me alone. They give cell phones because it's convenient to send texts and not have real conversations anymore. There are some good reasons to give cell phones. However, smartphones should wait till 13. We are starting to see very bad things, life-changing events that happen with kids and cell phones. It happens after 13, but before 13 is just far too young. All right, so I'm going to leave a little bit of time for questions. Anybody have questions? Nope, that's, yes, sir. Okay, so turning off the kids' phones, some of the apps, at minimum, the major companies offer like a $5, $6 plan from the cell phone company, which lets you know what they're downloading. You can set time limits, when they can use it, when they can't use it. So it's called different things, family plan, life plan. There's some different things that they call them, but it's a $5 plan from the cell phone company. There's another one called Life 360. There's some that are called there's Papa Bear and Mama Bear. There's a lot of applications. Now, kids a lot of times can figure out ways around these. So parents just have to be quick. A lot of times if you let your kids know that you're looking at them, if you do phone checks at random times, if you have them plug in their phones to a central charging location at night that you have the password, those are all things that are going to let your kid know that you're looking out for them, and it's less likely to do those kind of things. Right? But a lot of times people hand the cell phone and, hey, they're a good kid. They're never going to do anything. Yes. I'm dying here. Any questions? More questions? All right. If you follow Meridian Police or the Officer Gomez Mountain View High School page, you can get when the next classes are. You can get a lot of information on what's happening at the schools, the latest and greatest, whether you need to worry about it or not. I'm Officer Gomez. Thanks for having me.
That was more information than I could stomach tonight. I have 3 kids at home with cell phones, 2 are grounded from them at this point, and there are reasons. I checked them. Anyways, thank you all for coming, our citizens that have joined us tonight. our council members that are here and the city workers as well. And Mayor, thank you for having us here. And is Keith Anderson here, the headmaster? Well, he must have checked out, but we want to thank Challenger School for letting us be here tonight as well. So thank you all very much. And check the departments have information set out here as well that you guys will want to pick up some flyers. There are sign-in sheets for newsletters. And then, of course, check in over here with Caleb. Thank you all. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you so much.